So I think that the unified vision for humanity is a world that works for everyone. Because anything less, we have the risk of people feeling so disgruntled and resentful that they want to commit crime or harm. And when life is working for you, you just want to be creative and kind and sing, and you don't want to hurt anybody. And it doesn't bother you when someone else is doing something, you know? So, world that works for everyone. Okay, so yeah, I am Jenn Allstar, and I say that I'm from the positive, loving future, that I've been sent back in time to the present, to the now, with a mission to remind us all that the future is not set in stone. It is unwritten, and we can have a positive, loving future. We gotta believe and invoke it into being, right? Here's just a quick overview of where we're at with our human family. We have flying cars. This is the Samsung Switchblade. It's a three-wheeled car that drives, and the wings unfold like a transformer. This is not CGI. This is an actual car, and it unfolds in 3 minutes. You can drive to the airport and start flying around. And if bad weather comes, you can land, drive through the bad weather, and get back on the air. These are like, they sell for something like 170,000, and they have different. So, all right, we have water cars. This car drives on the road, and it goes straight in the water, and it zooms around the water like a motorboat, and then drives straight out of the water. We have holographic technology where people stand like professors and give their speech, and it is broadcast into a university. There's an iHolo table and Project Presence. This is a 3D hologram used in hospitals for surgeons to practice with, and even just to see brain tumors or whatever they're working on. Just showing you that we have this technology nowadays. We have bacteria and fungus that can eat plastic. This is one bacteria that eats polyethylene, tetra, blah, 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 PET, you know?
Is it good for it?
That's how they've evolved. These are bacteria that do that. They emit an enzyme, it breaks down the plastic. All right, and there's genetic modifying going on, but I just want to briefly say, like, what an amazing world we're in. We have, the future has caught up. Here's a headline of vision being restored to a blind person using a brain implant, and it's actually a competitor to Tesla's Neuralink, so you know they're not the only one. They have robotic limbs for amputees that have implants, and your mind and your thought actually control the arm moving. This man, yeah, it's incredible. We're here. The world is caught up. This is not an image from Back to the Future 2. This is actually a hover skateboard. They exist. You know what's fun is actually type into YouTube most amazing technology of 2024 or 25, you know, and just watch a reel and you'll just be astounded. This is how we trap water in the desert and regreen the desert. It's been solved, folks. This is the desert in Africa, and there actually is this Great Green Wall project. Even in China, I've seen articles about stopping the desert spread of the Gobi Desert. So, you know, we don't need to worry about Africa anymore. They're solving their own problems. All right, moving on. So cinema and theater originated with Bible stories. It is a source for teaching morality and how to handle life. And it's how we disseminate our entire value system. It can be an outlet for political freedom. It has been taken over and used as propaganda, as we all know. But let's imagine theater and cinema being used to empower and teach morality once again, and no longer being used as propaganda. Because we are seeing the breakup of Hollywood and their control, are we not? We are seeing it. I don't have time to get into it, but it's happening before our eyes. And there are film production companies that are aligned with the highest good of all and are telling stories that have been silenced. And when you find a movie that you really like, you can use websites like Movies Like That or Best Similar to find other films like that. Or look up the movie company that made that film and look up other films they've made and find more. They exist at the same time as the propaganda exists. How is the education system changing, becoming aligned with a world that works for everyone? Imagine an education system where the aim is a beautiful character. We could create lifelong learners who are informed and engaged and cannot be fooled when evil is disguising itself as good. And we do have these people that grow up and exist. It's not just a dream. Imagine students taking field trips of guided tours of every factory and business and farm that produce like all the essentials in our world and know how it's made. There's actually a movement in South America about creating worker co-ops from factories that were privately owned. It's amazing and inspirational, and the documentary begins with a group of school kids taking a tour of the ceramic ceiling tile factory and being told how the private owners locked out the employees who were trying to strike, and then they just fired up the factory and started working as a collective and kept it going. And there's a documentary called Fabrication. It's really great. I recommend checking it out. With just the solutions all exist. Let's imagine so much apprenticeship that it's almost always take your kid to work day. And honestly, I think kids at the workplace keep adults honest. I had a lunch with a friend and with some girlfriends, and one showed up late, and she was saying how she just loves when she brings her kid. She had to drop off lunch at her husband's construction site, and she just loves when she has the kid with her versus when she shows up on her own. The attitude and the words from the construction workers totally change when the kid is there versus when she just shows up herself. I just picture if kids were on the job site saying like, "Hey uncle, didn't you say last week we had to put 3 screws in every corner? Why are you only putting 2?" You know, it would keep people honest. Moving on. Great TED Talks by Ken Robinson. I don't know how he got the title of Sir, but his TED Talk's called "Do Schools Kill Creativity and Bring on the Learning Revolution?" They're more than 10 years old, but very relevant. He says kids have tremendous talent that is being squandered. We squander the talent of young people with our education system the way it is. There is some kind of hierarchy of importance, and he asks, why don't we grill dance into kids like we grill math and reading into them? We could treat creativity, or imagine treating creativity with the same importance as literacy. Creativity being the process of having original ideas that have value. He says we have sold ourselves into a fast food model of education, and it's impoverishing our spirits and our energies as much as fast food depletes our physical bodies. He says passion is key. Often people are good at things they don't really care for. Time takes a different course entirely when you're doing something you love. And yeah, we have to change our metaphors. And I envision, or let's imagine, Waldorf and Montessori style and level of school quality being the norm, being what Manitoba puts out. And you know, that's what it will. That's coming, I think. Unschooling, if you've never heard of unschooling, it fosters a mindset of exploration by allowing kids to learn about what they want to learn about. And let's imagine an education system that teaches how to make a life, not just make a living. How to create a life, not a living. And did you know just that things haven't always been the way they have been? And it was 1788 in Prussia where we had the first appearance of the modern education system being instituted as mandatory. And the Industrial Revolution needed literate factory workers. So, you know, Yeah, so things don't always, they haven't always been like this, and they don't have to always be like this. Okay, moving on to food production. Let's imagine that unhealthy products no longer are subsidized by government funding, and healthy foods receive all that funding instead. You're hearing in the news lately about not being allowed to buy cola or other processed junk food on food stamps in the States. I think I've even seen evidence of it in Winnipeg with someone in front of me in the line, and like the pizza being taken, like, oh, you can't get this. Anyway, and like we all know that like big sugar and big ag have taken over our regulatory agencies and passing laws that favor them and don't favor our health and well-being. But the movement is. The lies have been exposed. There are QR codes on products now that link you to their production practices, to all the ingredients, even a contact us page. I mean, if you had a choice between a bag of chips, 2 bags of chips, and one of them had a QR code that showed you where the ingredients came from, which one would you pick? I would pick the one that has transparency, and it's coming. I have some products like that, yeah. There's even something called an onshoring movement. There's a movement of onshoring, which is the opposite of offshoring, which is where we offshored our production for cheap labor elsewhere. Well, onshoring is bringing it back, because local production creates jobs and circulates money in the local economy, and it excites industry. Just a visual representation of how we've been lulled into this take and throw away kind of society. And it should be more like an infinity symbol here, where we regenerate biological materials and we restore technical materials. Like, imagine if our laptops and our cell phones were designed so that when they become old, you easily swap out the brain or something with an updated one, and you don't have to throw the whole phone away or the whole laptop, or even vehicles, if the parts that break down were designed to easily be replaced. We could do this if the corruption and the big power wasn't stopping it. You know, like, hemp is a superior product for paper use, even for clothing. It's superior, and it's corruption of the big oil and big cotton that suppressed hemp and linked it with marijuana and got it banned. You know, I don't have time to explain. I'm just trying to give you the solutions. And here's another visualization of how we are shifting from centralization to decentralization, or distributed. I got a book recently called The Mechanics of Changing the World by John McGregor, who was an investigative reporter for like the New York Times or something. He says that all of our problems are democratic in nature. Democracy meaning from the Greek words demos, meaning people, and kratos, meaning rule. So democracy means rule by the people. Just a refresher, if you forgot what it really means. And we need to address the root cause, not just the symptoms. You know, so having one big, powerful anything getting to dictate, that's the problem. That's undemocratic. That's what we need to get at. John McGregor, author here, says we need a system that confers power without selling it, empowers individuals to develop their skills and ideas, facilitates information without creating it, efficiently subtracts bad leaders from the political equation, and responds to feedback appropriately. And the book is, you know, like 500 pages, and I'm not finished reading how we do this. I'm showing you where we're going. Buckminster Fuller says it is now highly feasible to take care of everybody on earth at a higher standard of living than any have ever known. It no longer has to be you or me. Selfishness is unnecessary. War is obsolete. It is a matter of converting the high technology that we have from weaponry to livingry. Livingry, I love that term. I've even heard him call it killingry or weaponry, turning it into livingry. That would be like the desert, the collecting water and changing Africa or deserts into green spaces, you know? Or, anyway, moving on. Okay. Oh, we are at the singularity. What is the singularity? This is when AGI becomes ASI. That's artificial general intelligence becomes artificial super intelligence. When the AI becomes smarter than humans, and every expert will tell you that it is unpredictable what that will look like when the AI becomes smarter than us. Oh, great. But maybe it is great. Okay, so at best, artificial intelligence could unleash our creativity. AI, as I'm learning, is not a tool. It is actually an agent. It's like an employee. That's how powerful AI is. It's actually the ability of, it gives the ability of the little guy to compete with the big guy. Because a team of 4 or 5 people can create a Hollywood blockbuster film now using AI-generated images. You can create a whole song better than it takes you a month of production. In 1 hour, AI will do it. I'm actually training my AI. I'm feeding it laws, and I'm asking it to read and tell me which section is this and that. You can train, there are so many artificial intelligences that have been trained in specific areas. We either use AI to destroy and or enslave ourselves, or we will use it to create a world that works for everyone. I don't think there's an in-between. It's that powerful, and yeah, the power to transform our lives. It is so crucial that we implement appropriate legislation to limit AI and genetic modification and all these other things, bind everything. Bind our curiosity and ingenuity to creating livingry and greatness, and not to capitalism or unrestrained selfishness. And it's happening. I have other presentations where I go into the laws on AI, but not right now. The best technology is being used by the military right now. It is not solving problems, and it is not open source, which are solutions. Open source is a great solution. Buckminster Fuller says that compared to war, eliminating poverty and restoring the environment are cheap. Cheap. I've heard it, like people say, oh, we can't afford to do this or that. And it's like, we actually can't afford not to. We can't afford to keep dealing with the symptoms. Deliberative democracy is mentioned in the Mechanics of Changing the World book. The Swiss actually have something called direct democracy, where when they are not satisfied with legislation passed by their legislators, they can call for a referendum with 5% of signatures from the population, and they can vote and take back laws that their legislators have passed. And they have actually, the Swiss, we all wonder, why is Switzerland so different? I wonder if this is a key. They've actually reduced the size of their military. Like, imagine if next time City of Winnipeg decides, oh, we're gonna buy 2 new tanks and 500 new police uniforms, and the people of Winnipeg have a referendum and say, no, you're gonna fund social workers instead, right? We could be doing this with direct democracy. And there are, I've seen independent candidates around the country, like, right, running for politics, saying or using the platform of, I'm going to implement direct democracy. I'm going to bring that up and try to get it happening. That's on their platform. The Swiss have essentially made their government into a small dog on a short leash, which is what we want as a vision. The city of Seattle introduced something called democracy vouchers, which every person was given 4 $25 vouchers to give to the political candidates of their choice. And apparently one error was, you must also ban all other financial contributions. So it didn't exactly work how it was being envisioned, but you know, a system that responds adequately to feedback is what we're looking for. And this is a great step. And also if it, I don't know, anyway, and it was funded by a financial transaction tax, which is a tax on stock market financial transactions. That's where the $25 each came from. And the ancient Greeks who gave us democracy had something called sortition for randomly selecting regular people for civics duty. Just like jury duty, they had civics duty, which I would love. Imagine if it, like, I would like to get involved and make a difference, but it feels so hopeless, and like it costs $10,000 just to put your name in the hat to run, and then you might lose, and it's so much effort. I want my opportunity to get involved. I love the idea of civics duty. And actually the ancient Greeks did this because they knew that voting leads to rigging of votes and oligarchy, that you end up having only a few controlled people at the top to vote for anyway. They knew that way back then. Anyways, and other solutions are getting rid of the party system. Have you heard of wearethechange.ca, the Canadian Democracy Defense Association? Their plan is to inspire people in every riding across Canada federally, which there are 300 and something of, it's not an impossible number, to have an independent candidate or two to vote for, so we can get out of the political system. Did you know that after serving just 2 terms or 6 years of pensionable service in public office, one is entitled to a lifetime pension? That inspires me to run. So how do we encourage people to jump in and get involved with running our society, with politics? I think we need to take over not just public office, but all the boards and steering committees and neighborhood associations, right? All of them, church committees, get on boards, get involved. And so this was a CBC show, the show Ideas with Nala Ayed. I really like that show. She asks the question of this author, Anand Giridharadas. She asks, how do we encourage people to jump in? And he says, by telling a different story about how we use money. He reminds us that business used to only be a sector of society. It wasn't, but now it has become our culture and our value system. And he says it's not who we want to be if we really think about it. And his idea is that we are in an age of reform where public purpose becomes the lodestar driving force for societies. Imagine a society where people feel more attracted to going into public service than working for Instagram or a big company. And public service jobs are good paying ones, aren't they? Everybody likes their cushy city jobs. Public purpose becomes the lodestar driving force for societies getting involved. So we need to change our story. Back to deliberative democracy. Yeah, we need to get involved at all levels, all boards, all neighborhood associations. Just get involved and understand how things are run. That our government regulatory agencies are no longer protecting us. They've been captured. But it's been exposed. We know now. And when the truth comes out, eventually things can change, right? There is a divide and conquer playbook. Interesting fact, because I like to remind you that things haven't always been this way and they don't always have to be this way. That during the French Revolution in 1789, all of the people of France were unified against the monarchy. And the plan, the divide and conquer move, was to split them, and the split was the more open-minded liberal folk who had been moving to the cities were called left, and the people in the country living more conservative, big family, simple lives were called right. And the left and right, this is the origins of left versus right political thinking. was to divide a people that were unified against the monarchy. I don't necessarily myself, I actually think I am a liberal conservative. But anyway, okay, I'm just about to get into how we need to learn how to have discussions about difficult topics, and actually agreeing to disagree is a shallow platitude. How are we doing? Keep it going? All right. But this is what happens when we talk about politics, right? People are having dinner and there's food everywhere. You see why I hate talking about politics during meals? And then here you have a couple showing up for dinner party. This time, keep off politics, religion, and football, you know? And sitting in the bar drinking, and well, now that we can't discuss religion, politics, or the weather, I got nothing to say, right? Can't even talk about the weather anymore because climate change is controversial and divisive. This is our psychological challenge. For 300,000 years, this is from the book, humans have lived in tribes, taken care of each other, and only in the last 10,000 years, humans have been domesticated. We are not free, and we actually have come to believe in our cage, you know, believe that we have to work for our living and use money the way we do. But how rational are our beliefs? Humanity, I will remind us all, is named after its greatest trait. Can you guess? Humaneness. We are humane. Some more cartoons like sitting in the bar saying, well, I never talk politics anymore. It always gets so politicized. And then, you know, father telling the kid that civics class is about politics, and the kid says, why would we discuss politics in civics class? Politics aren't civil. It's true. That's not how it should be. So I actually did a deep dive into the value of conflict and the importance of conflict. And this researcher named Claire Canfield, he asks, what if conflict isn't a problem? What if it's a solution? What if conflict isn't negative? What if it's full of beauty? Conflict is an energy source for innovation, creativity, and transformation. This man was, his TED Talk, he was a judge for like 40 years. He explains that what happens, and so he watched so many people try to have discussions and have it fall apart. What happens is we begin to share, then we feel vulnerable, then we get defensive. And when we get defensive, our thinking becomes very rigid and inflexible. Our IQ actually drops about 20 points. We literally become stupid. When we are defensive, it shuts down our higher thinking of the brain. When we become stupid and defensive, it invites everybody else in the room to get defensive too, which becomes a room full of people who cannot solve a problem and just peck away at each other like chickens. That's what he was saying here. Nothing will help us more with collaboration and resolving conflicts than becoming a better manager of our own defensiveness, which I'll return to in a second. Here are 4 key takeaways from conflict and reframing. Metaphors matter. We've traditionally viewed arguments and even debate as a battle. No wonder we attack, defend, and counter. The arguments and argumentors who try to persuade us. Would you be willing to see conflict as a dance? This man named Dave Sumner asks us in his TED Talk called To Win, You Must Lose, How to Argue Better. Battles are win-lose, but dancing is win-win and fun. Battles have enemies, dancing has partnerships. Battles are wounding, and dancing is healing. Argue to learn, not to win. That's a big one. Ask, why do you believe the way you do? Not, that's wrong. We must move beyond the right-wrong trap to transform the renewable resource of conflict into creativity. It's not your way or my way, it's a new way where we see value in both sides. And the two magic ingredients for turning conflict into creativity are curiosity and vulnerability. Find common ground. Conflicts are like icebergs, and there's so much underneath the surface. We are encouraged to dig deep and find where we actually diverged in our beliefs, thoughts, or opinions, and find where we do agree. The disagreement is typically over a core value, and he suggests that it's important to create a shared reality and set shared goals. He says, watching people disagree without goals is boring. It is not the highest and best use at all. And back to Judge Tam. Don't be offended, be effective. Can you see, would you be willing to see people as mistaken, not as vicious? So, you know, and then his big suggestion is to develop an early warning detection system for yourself to recognize the signs when you are becoming defensive. He even says, ask people who know you what you do when you become defensive, so you can develop, you can recognize. And these are the steps. Acknowledge that you're becoming defensive, slow down, breathe, check for negative self-talk or irrational beliefs, and then learn to create your own specific effective techniques that you can apply and bring in the moment to, you know, stop being, to come out of defensiveness and back into open-mindedness. All right. There is something, again, from the 1700s. I forgot to mention this part, but I believe that all of the problems of our world have already been solved. We don't need to work on them. We just need to look for who has already solved it and then get on board. So the system of the best of all possible worlds was invented or proposed by a German philosopher named Leibniz in the 1700s. He thought that mankind ought to mutually assist each other and contribute to the perfection and happiness of fellow creatures. The terms life, liberty, and property actually come from Leibniz, and conspiracy theory. Many of us know that the term conspiracy theorist was invented by the CIA to discredit and ridicule people who questioned the JFK assassination, who thought, no way that bullet could do that. No way it was this Lee Harvey Oswald guy. And the term conspiracy theorist was invented to ridicule these people. Well, similarly, the term optimism, an optimist, was invented and first used as a derogatory mocking nickname against the Leibnizian philosophical system. Oh, those optimists who think human beings are not solely driven by greed and selfishness. It was, you know, it was started by a French Jesuit who saw utopia as a threat to the oligarchy. Yeah, you know, those crazy people like who think we are not homo economicus, solely driven by wealth and personal gain. This is old. This is done. This is not true. This is a lie that has been forced down our throats. The best of all possible worlds does not mean a perfect world. It means it's better than any other alternative. A quote from Leibniz: "The home trade of a nation circulates money and furnishes all the citizens with the means of procuring whatever they want as either necessary, useful, or agreeable." There's so many details about actually protectionism and tariffs were part of Leibniz. He said, you know, we should be able to protect our nation from being flooded with cheap imports. I kind of like this whole tariff stuff that's going on right now. I'm hearing local, like, you know, it's making us talk about local and onshoring again. Not a bad thing. Leibniz said, if we want perfection, then happiness is the measure and aim that we ought to be striving for and aiming towards. Happiness should be the measure. It actually is time for the measure of a nation to change. Happiness, according to Leibniz, comes from serving the common good. Again, with making public purpose the lodestar driving force. I actually am a public servant right now, and it makes me feel so great it does bring me happiness. All right, imagine in our economy an honesty system. It is time for the measurement of success of a nation to change. We have professors giving us things like transaction cost analysis, or like, imagine if there was an actual cost to every email you sent out. Who would send out spam? You know, if it wasn't free, if it actually cost you $1 or something every email you sent. And I've long thought that the food and meat industries were severely not accurate in their cost analysis, because the subsidies go to disguising the true costs. And imagine if there was actually honesty and justice. Circular economy. What if things weren't made to break down, but to last and be easily upgraded and maintained? And a sharing economy. We have this sharing economy. All of these are on the rise. These are all movements that you can research. Peer-to-peer sharing of resources through digital platforms like Uber and Airbnb, and even freelance, journalists or workers of any kind. It's on the rise. The internet is enabling people who have stuff with people who want the stuff, or people who need skills with people that have the skills. It's also called the collaborative economy or peer economy. All right, more TED Talks. Marilyn Waring, she was actually a member of her parliament when she was young, and she's wrote books. She's an economist. She's actually hilarious if you listen to her TED Talks. She says that GDP only counts something if there's a market exchange, including illegal exchanges. So black market drug sales are actually estimated and put on the GDP. Mining, deforestation, or deleting our environment in any way is counted as growth. Oil spills and natural disasters are good for the economy. She brings up the Exxon Valdez oil spill was great for the American economy. Trafficking people is also estimated and counted as growth. War is good for growth. Labor, childbirth, and breast milk are not counted as economically productive. There's no credit side. There are only debits in our national accounts. Preserving our environment actually counts for nothing. This is why it is time for the measurement of our success of our nations to change, to maybe measure happiness and environmental preservation. What if every square foot of forest, counted as some sort of credit? This researcher named Kelly Monahan, in her TED Talk called The Future of Work, Hiding in Plain Sight, she says that we all know that if we're not happy and satisfied with our work lives, it spills over into our personal lives. 86% of millennials are demanding that work be about more than just making profits. And the talk is often about how do we fix the humans to fit into this workforce, but she gives 4 ways that we can fix the system so that it works for the individuals. Stability, intellectual stimulation, sense of dignity, and meaningful connections. This is why people go to work. This would make people continue going to work. Another TED Talk, The Way We Think About Work is Broken, by Barry Schwartz, a psychologist. He says it's not true that you just can't get good help anymore. What is true is that you just can't get good help anymore if you give people work to do that is demeaning and soulless. Human nature is very much a product of the environment, and he says that we become the work that we do. So if you give people work that is meaningless and soulless, that's sort of how they become. Market freedom has eroded all the best things in life: science, morality, and meaning derived from work. Yes, we have designed a workforce for routine, repetitive, high accuracy tasks called specialized intelligence. That's not where people do great, doing the same thing over and over and over. That's where robots do great. Where people do well is general intelligence, which is seeing the bigger picture, is creativity. So we are at a decision crossroads right now where we can double down on efficiency and continue to create colorful walls, and which is the trying to make people fit into the workforce. Oh, color, they need color. Oh, they need comfier chairs. Oh, they need nap rooms. Or we can use AI to unlock the innately human side of work. Cooperation. Actually, the truth is humans evolved as a species due to cooperation. We are hardwired to connect. It's fascinating to research these subjects. There's studies and research, there's empirical data to prove that people are happier when they're connecting with other people than when they're all by themselves. Don't have time to get into it all, but yes, we can bring back a sense of stability. We can engage in intellectually creative work, create connections, and return a sense of dignity. The key will be to incentivize collaboration. And back to psychologist Barry Schwartz, he says that if we create work environments that require creativity and collaboration, that's the kind of human qualities we will nourish, and that's the kind of people we'll create. Right? If work really does design our human nature or influence our human nature, just what kind of human nature do we want to help design? And I think people go to work, I think if given the choice of work or not work, people want to work. Nobody happy and healthy really wants to sit around doing nothing. I think, like I've noticed, I'll do physical labor because it makes my body tired and it uses my muscles, and I sleep well at night. I work because it's mentally satisfying. I work to work on projects that make me feel proud, and that builds my self-esteem. I really don't think that only hurting people want to stay home and play video games all day. So let's create work environments that require creativity and collaboration and nourish these traits. So there's actually a movement called collaborative consumption, which is just quickly defined. It's an economic system that's driven by internet or network technologies that enable the sharing and exchange of assets from everything to spaces, right, Airbnb, to skills and cars on a scale that is never seen before. This is also, she says, collaboration leads to connection. She says people are no longer buying things to keep up with the Joneses, but buying things to connect with the Joneses. She talks about in her book how someone in England, after some tragic event in England, I don't know, a bombing or a building fire or something, that an Airbnb owner received 13 messages from strangers or from people that were in his Airbnb before he received a single phone call from a family member asking, "Are you okay?" This collaborative consumption economy is building connections. And we crave connection. And actually, collaboration is becoming incentivized and permissionless. And also, again, stands to revolutionize things in ways we can't even imagine. I go back to restaurants because I like and connected with the server, If I'll go to a different one if there's no connection, because there's so many restaurants. So yes, how we use money, needs to change. There is banking scandal after banking scandal. Governments borrow money that they don't need to borrow, and they pay interest on it. It's so criminal, my goodness. Governments are supposed to exist to provide services to the people. Yes, sales. Great documentary called The Secret of Oz by investigative reporter Bill Still. He explains that 6 times in the USA's history, they broke free from the bankers' control and created a currency from the Bank of America. And all 6 times, the bankers took control back somehow. We all know the history of the Federal Reserve Bank that's neither federal nor a bank. And 8 presidents actually died in office in the USA, and they all exposed the federal bank. Well, the unfederal bank, the private federal bank. They, They all opposed it, yeah, right. So, and even Jesus, I say, died exposing the corrupt bankers and priests. So this problem has existed for thousands of years, us being controlled by those money controllers. Yeah, there's an article. It was actually taken, the Bank of Canada was taken to court over their misuse of our ability to, to make money for ourselves, because the Bank of Canada was taking out loans from private banks and being charged interest. Did you know that's why sales tax was invented? To pay the interest on our national loans, which we shouldn't even have. It's billions of dollars every day leaves and goes into the private coffers. This is about solutions. We know that we need to change how we use money. We need a philosophy that teaches and allows individuals to actualize the means to do the job, or to make their dreams come true, to solve problems. Money gives you the power to and the power over. There's two kinds of power, and the power over someone is really unhealthy, and money creates that. But what money also gives is the power to make your dreams come true, and that's a good kind of power. Anyways, Dr. Brene Brown calls that masculine power and feminine power. But the Proverbs 22:7 says, the borrower is slave to the lender. Anyway, so credit cards could and were supposed to be used to enable us to collect all the items we need in society that are necessary for us. And they were not supposed to be a thing you pay back. But I don't have time to get into all the details of that. But yeah, what if Canada was like a great big company, like our family business, right? And we all had a credit card to the company store. And whatever you needed, you went and you signed for it. And then when you did your taxes, it was just about keeping track of inventory. Anyway, yeah. Should we have to earn our living? It bugs me that my brother can charge $60 an hour for doing construction, and my friends that work, do daycare work only make minimum wage. It bothers me. They both work just as hard. All right, basic income, it's so controversial, but I personally think basic income is going to kick us into a world that works for everyone, okay? This guy is researching how do we find meaning and fulfillment in a world where there's less demand for traditional work, and says we could actually incorporate incentives, like, for example, you could pay a high school graduate a higher basic income than a dropout. To incentivize people to continue with their personal development. Or maybe incentives to help the community or to do positive things for the environment. So another TED Talk says that the threat of technology causing unemployment is real, but yet it's a good problem to have. The amount of wealth on our planet, I think in his TED Talk he says if we take all the wealth of the planet divided by all the people on the planet, it would be about $5,000 each annually. That's about the wealth of this world. There's enough. It is no longer a question of how to generate wealth, it's how to distribute it equally. It's a question of sharing. I honestly think kindergarten kids could set up a better world than we have right now. Okay, we're getting to the end. Money actually is a collective fiction. I remember from economics class in university, an exam question, what is money? The answer was a medium of exchange, It's not a thing that actually has value. The value is the things we exchange, the people's time, the people's labor. Digital money is no longer even physical, and it's just entries in a database that belong to companies. Cryptocurrencies are the first step to a world of programmable money that can be sent to anyone, anywhere, without asking permission. Programmable money, like Bitcoin, democratizes money. It's decentralized, it's not centralized. That's why Bitcoin has a lot of flack. And programmable money, digital money, will actually lead to changes in ways we cannot even imagine. Again, these things that are coming in our world that will lead to we don't even know what. Yeah, she says the new economy will be a sharing economy. Putting the pieces together, I foresee that receiving a basic income, it improves mental and physical health and happiness. It increases high school graduation rates. It increases entrepreneur endeavors that are meaningful and beneficial. I actually watched the House of Commons of Canada that talked about implementing a basic income, which got voted down, but they brought in experts and professors who gave, presentations to the Senate. And I listened to that. And anyone who thinks that receiving a basic income makes people sit at home and do nothing, it doesn't. It makes you feel dignity, and it makes you feel cared about by your world, by your society, and it gives you the impetus to start an entrepreneurial endeavor, to say no to that job that's meaningless and start doing something else. It gets us out of traps. There's things that a basic income needs to, incorporate so that it doesn't get corrupt as well. But check it. Technology is lowering uncertainty and enabling trust between strangers. That's what the collaborative consumption is all about, like Uber. I call an Uber, in 2 minutes or 1 minute, a car shows up, And I don't have to give them money because it's connected to my credit card. It's so quick. Technology is creating marketplaces for almost anything and everything. Collaboration is becoming permissionless and incentivized. And solving problems at our current level involves cooperation. We can't solve them on our own. So would a basic income lead to permissionless entrepreneurial collaboration that solves global problems? I think it would. Yes. All right. Yes. Okay. So yeah, there has been a striving for and a movement towards human greatness for many years. We have concepts of the common good, of justice, of equality, of universities, right, to share knowledge. Jesus taught us that love is the way. The Chinese have the mandate of heaven. There's Plato and his highest self. There's the red road path of indigenous thinking. There is an organized elite that opposes greatness, human greatness. They think they're royalty. Those who are dishonest and selfish are actually untiring in their efforts to thwart us. Those of us who are upright and well-intentioned are actually passive. I think we need to, okay, I'm wrapping it up, folks. This is why we need to engage in political discussion and religious discussion and not just agree to disagree. Because the ones that want us to fight and be divided, they are unrelenting and untiring in their efforts to divide us. So we need to be just as unrelenting in our efforts to unify, for unity. Check ourselves. Do you notice yourself saying, well, somebody shares an idea and you think, well, the problem with that is. Catch yourself and change it to, what I like about that is, I often I share ideas with people and they come back with me, well, that would be nice, Jen, but. Just take the but out. That would be nice, Jen, period. Take a breath. There, and then what I agree with that is, what I could see actually being feasible is, it's so hard. This is our psychological challenge, to rewire our own brains, to agree, to unity, to find common ground, to find something to agree with, to argue, to learn and understand rather than to win. Ask people why they think they've come to the conclusions they have. Let's imagine persuasion being used for the highest good of all. Persuasion. We actually should be open to being persuaded. Anyway, let us speak up for the world we want relentlessly. Be the last word. If someone said law is never going to happen, you say, well, I actually think it will. Be that last word. All right, cheers to everyone who speaks the truth, no matter how much it bothers people. Thank you, folks. Yeah.